This is Euronews Now, the headlines. Gathering what they can and fleeing the war, the UN's refugee agency says more than 2.5 million Ukrainian refugees have now left the country to get away from the deadly attacks. Russia expands its devastating bombing campaign, hitting urban areas, some of which were previously thought to be relatively safe. The US accuses Russia of using the UN to spread disinformation as Moscow brings unsubstantiated claims to the Security Council about Washington and Kiev supposedly collaborating to create biological weapons. The EU tells Ukraine that there's no fast-track option to become a member as European leaders gather in Versailles to approve additional aid to the country. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Per Bergfors Nyberg. The United Nations Refugee Agency says more than 2.5 million people have fled Ukraine and at least 2 million have been internally displaced since Russia invaded. Now, Russian troops have stepped up bombardment attacks in urban areas. For the first time, airstrikes targeted the central eastern city of Dnipro, while troops around the capital, Kiev, are said to be regrouping. And reports of shelling were confirmed in the western cities of Lutsk and Ivano-Frankivsk. Further east, hundreds of civilians were said to be inside a psychiatric hospital in the Kharkiv region as it was struck by Russian missiles. Now, latest estimates from the UN's Human Rights Office suggest that between the start of the war and on Thursday, at least 564 civilians, including 41 children, were killed by Russian strikes. The organization says the actual toll is likely to be much higher.
It's impossible to say how many days we will still need to free our land, but it's possible to say that we will do it because we strive for that. Because we have reached a strategic turning point. We are already moving towards our goal, towards our victory. This is a patriotic war. War with a very stubborn enemy who does not pay attention to the thousands of the people and soldiers killed.
Now, I spoke to our correspondent Sasha Bakulina, who said that cities under attack in the west of Ukraine are harboring thousands of displaced people.
Lutsk is very close to the border with Poland, Ivano-Frankivsk to the border with Romania. Now, these cities, they've been shelled for the first time. The cities very close to the borders of the European Union. Not only many Ukrainians are there as they fled from central Ukraine, from eastern and southern Ukraine, as you said, many more are crossing these regions and these cities every day when they're trying to flee the country and to go to the European Union to cross those borders. In both of these cases, these were the airfields that they were shelled this morning, and Russia confirmed this, saying that these were the targets there. The third city is Dnipro. Now, Dnipro is the city in central Ukraine. It's a huge city. That's the first time it's been shelled today. This morning, the attack around 6 o'clock in the morning. 3 strikes hit the city, with the buildings of the shoe factory, the apartment block, and the kindergarten nearby being targeted. At least one person died. Dnipro, until this morning, was also seen as a rather less dangerous, I can't say safe place, but less dangerous than other places in Ukraine.
Now, looking at the capital, Kiev, we've heard about those Russian troops regrouping today. What do you know about that? Yeah,
that's according to the company Maxar Technologies and their satellite pictures. Apparently, the troops are regrouping northwest of Kiev. You remember, this is the area with all the towns of Irpin, Bucha, and there is an airfield there, Hostomel. So towards Hostomel to Kiev, this is northwest from Ukraine's capital. There are pictures and proofs that there was a column of Russian troops that stayed there. Now they dispersed and regrouped, and according to Maxar Technology, they are now about 5 kilometers closer to Kiev than they were 24 hours ago. And this might mean that they're trying to reach Kiev, the capital, in a different way. Now, according to the presidential advisor, Arestovich, Russian forces did not make any significant progress in the past 24 hours.
Now, the port city of Odessa there on the map, that city is also readying itself for a possible Russian advance. Why is Odessa such an important city strategically?
It is very, very important strategically indeed. It is the Black Sea coast here, and initially the troops went towards Odessa from Crimea. Now, according to the latest information by the mayor of Odessa and the head of the Mykolaiv region, those ships, they went back to their bases. So which means that this is no longer going to be the attack from the sea. Instead, they do have information that they will try to get to Odessa from Mykolaiv region. As you know, the troops are already in the region of Kherson. They're trying to advance to Mykolaiv, and if they get to Mykolaiv, this is when they can get towards Odessa, because this way they will be able to surround Odessa. And this will happen because of this region, because of the breakaway Transnistria. This is this territory of Moldova, which is not recognized. This is the first, and this is the example of a frozen war that happened in the very early 90s with the collapse of the Soviet Union. Transnistria is this territory here in yellow, and there are permanently around 1,500 Russian troops called peacekeepers that are already there, which means so if there is movement from Kherson region towards Mykolaiv region, this would mean Odessa will be just surrounded from both sides.
Now, Russia has reiterated the unsubstantiated claim that Ukraine and the United States are conspiring to build biological weapons. At a UN Security Council meeting called for by Russia, the country's envoy, Vasily Nebenzia, accused Kyiv and Washington of conducting, quote, very dangerous biological experiments.
I would like to address my colleagues from Europe separately. Right next to the European Union, you've had an experimental platform for extremely dangerous biological trials, and we call upon you to think about a very real biological danger to the people in European countries, which can result from an uncontrolled spread of bioagents from Ukraine, which, as we've seen with COVID-19, is impossible to stop. And if there is such a scenario, then all of Europe will be covered by it.
Now, the U.S., another permanent Security Council member, strongly refuted this claim. Its ambassador, Linda Thomas-Greenfield, accused Russia of using the UN as a platform to spread disinformation.
Russia is attempting to use the Security Council to legitimize disinformation and deceive people to justify President Putin's war of choice against the Ukrainian people. And China, too, has been spreading disinformation in support of Russia's outrageous claims. I will say this once. Ukraine does not have a biological weapons program. There are no Ukrainian biological weapons laboratories supported by the United States, not near Russia's border or anywhere.
Alexei Goncharenko is a member of the Ukrainian parliament, and he told me that the accusations were just the latest in a list of stories he's heard from Russia.
You know, I've heard the briefing of Russian general, hero of Russia, like big officer, who said like insane things, that Ukraine was preparing some viruses which can attack Russians separately on ethnical ground. I am not joking. That was said by Russian high-ranked general, that we have like some special viruses for Russians. And after this, they are saying that about denazification. Real Nazis are Russian authorities, that's all. And also they said that we were preparing birds, migrating birds, so they will take these viruses to Russian territory. And also we were preparing some special insect to do this. Just, it's absolutely insane things. They are mad. They need psychiatric help, definitely. And that is so dangerous for the world. When people who has a nuclear weapon, biological weapon, because Russians, they have it, chemical weapon, and they used it. When you remember Novichok's story, they are just mad people and very inadequate.
Now, there have been claims today by the Ukrainian Air Force Command that Russian jets are supposed to have fired on Belarus from Ukrainian airspace. Why would Russian jets do that?
Russian always do false flag operations, like they did it, like Nazi did in 1939. Gleiwitz, we remember how the Second World War started, and then they did it in Donbass just 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago, saying that we were bombarding Russian territory, which was complete lie. And then it was shown to everybody that it was lie. And now they are trying to get to take Belarus into this war. In general, Russia is already using Belarus as a Plattsdarm and their territory to move to Ukraine. but they want now to take Belarus army into action. And Lukashenko is in reality puppet regime of Putin, and they want this puppet regime to join their attempts to take Kiev, because Putin themselves, Russian forces, could not penetrate to the city, and our army is holding the ground.
Now, Alexei, you're a member of the Ukrainian parliament. I see that you're sitting with a pretty big weapon there behind you. What kind of safety precautions measures have you taken to stay safe there in the capital of Kiev?
I also joined Civic Guard. We call it territorial defense. That's why I received this automatic rifle. It's Kalashnikov. And like thousands of my compatriots, I don't have a military experience, but I am ready to fight for my city, shoulder to shoulder with thousands of my compatriots. I hope that I will not need to do this, but for the moment, we are making some missions of evacuation of people, things like this. We are like a second line of our army. I hope that our first line will stop occupants, but if the occupants will penetrate to city, we will meet them with this.
Now, as Kiev prepares to defend itself, a group of volunteers with Ukrainian heritage have set off from Italy, crossing 3 countries on a bus carrying aid. The party hopes to enter the country soon and help those in need. Euronews correspondent Giorgia Orlandi is on the bus, and she sent us this update from the Romanian border.
Our journey continues. Along the way, we met an Ukrainian couple from the city of Sumy in the eastern part of the country. The city was partly bombarded. They left Ukraine. We met them in Slovenia. They're trying to reach Italy. And we've nearly now arrived at the Romania-Ukraine border, but the mood among passengers here in this van has changed. That's because of reports that several locations, including airfields in the western cities of Ivano-Frankivsk and Lutsk, came under attack early this morning. Those 2 locations are very close to the village where these vans carrying humanitarian aid and passengers, Ukrainian people who want to offer their help in Ukraine, is heading to. The driver and 2 other women who are traveling with us, together with Giuseppe, a man of Ukrainian heritage who wants to join the Ukrainian Army, told us they have become increasingly concerned. They spoke to their families. They're set to be safe, but the question is for how long. Those 2 locations are very close, about 100 kilometers drive away from the city of Lviv, which has become the main hub where humanitarian aid, food supplies have been collected for both civilians and soldiers fighting on the front line. So clearly targeting those locations in the western part of the country is very significant, and it could soon turn into a game changer in the conflict. Giorgia Orlandi at the Romania-Ukraine border for Euronews.
And still to come here on Euronews Now, we're heading over to Matthew in the Cube.
Meta is relaxing its rules and says it will allow Ukrainian users to express their anger against Russian invaders. We'll have that story after the break.